So right now we'll go to the important characteristic symptoms that he tells us about, the basic, the 5 to 6 characteristic symptoms that he talks about, which will be found in every condition of colchicum. Okay, so whatever disease condition colchicum has, he must or he has to have those 5 to 6 characteristic symptoms. It is not very mandatory that he should have all of them, but yeah, 2 to 3 at least very peculiarly should be present for us to prescribe colchicum. So the first very important landmark that Dr. Choudhuri talks about is the extreme relaxation of the entire muscular system. And now when we talk about this, we have to recall gelsemium. So gelsemium has this extreme, relaxation of the entire. So muscular system पे action है gelsemium का, and it is very, very, strong. Nobody can forget about it. We will also talk about gelsemium in our further, videos. But right now, in colchicum, this is present, right? Extreme relaxation of the entire muscular system. How do you know? So this is manifested by the constant disinclination on the part of the patient to move or to walk. So this entire muscular weakness, because of this patient will want to just sit down and will not want to move or will not want to work at all. Sickness in the morning, at noontime, in the evening, and at night. So when is he not sick? So it's morning, noon, evening, night. So all the time he is sick because he has this entire muscular system wala feeling that there's relaxed. It's all gone. Okay, and the muscles are not so strong. And slightest exertion, even if he has climbed only a few steps, even he is just straining for stool, or even he is just talking, that will give him lethargy, that will give him exhaustion. So there is even slightest exertion. Sometimes this exhaustion is so marked that he sits up. Then that when he sits up, so right now if he goes and he sits somewhere, so this exhaustion is so much that when he sits up, then his head falls either forward on his chest or on his back, or as if this is as if he has not the strength to keep it up, as if he has no strength to even keep his head up. This prostration is almost like the prostration of arsenicum, only without the restlessness of arsenic. We know that arsenic is restless, but arsenic is also a major remedy for prostration. So when we talk about the action on muscular system, especially the relaxation of muscular system, we have to remember about the remedy gelsemium, which also has this symptom as a peculiar symptom. And when we talk about the prostration, when we're talking about the prostration, it is like arsenic. So we have to remember arsenic. Arsenic is just restless, that is a differentiating symptom. Arsenic is more restless. Okay, it's restless. Colchicum, it's nothing like restless. In fact, they are so disinclined to even move. They cannot be even restless because they cannot even just talk, strain for stool, climb a few steps. They're very, 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 very exhausted. So remember this symptom, okay? It's very, very important and it's very characteristic, isn't it? The second important landmark that he talks about is the general, mental and physical, both, aggravation from first movement. So even little bit movement he cannot afford. There's a lot of aggravation. You have already seen how exhausted he is. He cannot afford to move even a little bit. He cannot afford to talk, strain for stool, okay? This exposure to damp, cold, from getting wet, from bathing and living in damp dwellings, this also aggravates him. So even if he gets, if he gets wet from rain or wet, if he's exposed to any kind of damp weather, okay, if he's living in damp dwellings, so if he's living in a room, which has which has these walls which have all gotten this wet and damp, that will also affect him. This change, if there's any change in weather, that will also affect him. So this is the second important landmark. There is general aggravation from movement, exposure to damp, cold, from getting wet, from bathing, vagara, from changes in the weather, right? Now, what is the third characteristic? The third characteristic is its great susceptibility to all external impressions such as light, noise and strong odors. So basically great external impressions. So whatever external impressions are there, he cannot take it. Then he talks about the fourth characteristic, which is the great nausea and faintness from the odor of cooked food. So especially from the odor of cooked food. This gives them great nausea and faintness. And especially fish, eggs and fatty meat will cause them this suffering. It will give them great nausea. Okay, especially fish, eggs and fatty meat. So now, right now, at this point, Dr. N.M. Choudhuri does a very exciting, interesting thing. He actually cites a case which has been solved by Dr. Nash. So let's learn about that case. What is it that Dr. N.M. Choudhuri wants to tell us? So, Dr. Choudhuri tells us that the patient of Dr. Nash was actually 75-year-old male. So, he was an old patient and he had stomach ache as a chief complaint. There was vomiting, which contained large quantities of blood. And there was severe purging, okay? Great tenesmus. Tenesmus is the urge, okay? And then the treatment was done by Dr. Nash. He had given aconite, nux vomica, ipecac, hemamelis, sulfur, but none of them helped, okay? They did not help. Even doctors felt that the patient was going to die. That severe the case was. So you can imagine, if the doctors are thinking that the patient is going to die, how difficult the condition must be. He was vomiting blood, right? During all this sickness, the patient had been so nauseated and faint at this smell of cooking food that they had been obliged to keep the doors closed between her bedroom and kitchen, which were two large rooms away. So already the bedroom and the kitchen were large away, right? They were away from each other. And yet the patient had to keep the doors closed because even slight smell of cooking food would make him nauseated. So this was the symptom. Now, Dr. Nash was already talking about this symptom. There's nausea from the smell of cooking food, especially, fish, eggs, fatty meat. That is why he tells us this case, because when this symptom was taken by Dr. Nash, he prescribed Colchicum finally, it was given, and the results were most marvelous. Right? So a patient who was going to die, but with this remedy, he was helped. So, you can understand that this symptom is the characteristic symptom because of this reason, because it is so helpful, okay? So whenever you have this kind of symptom and you prescribe Colchicum, it has to help. Or no, most of the times it does help if all the other some of the other characteristic symptoms are also present. So see, it did help in this case. So the results were marvelous, yeah, right? So homeopathy is really amazing, and doctors are amazing, who like doctors like N.M. Choudhuri, doctors like E.B. Nash are amazing, who study so much, who could do this. And this is a dose of motivation that Dr. N.M. Choudhuri also gives us after telling us about this case. He says that yet another reason for citing this particular case, okay, so why did he cite this case, is to impress on all medical practitioners. What does he want to tell us? That the importance of strong determination, perseverance, and patience. Like he wants us to know about the importance of this through this case. Dr. Nash failed. Okay, he failed not once, not twice, but many times. Right? He prescribed nux vomica, he prescribed ipecac, aconite, hemamelis, sulfur. He failed, but still he was determined to fight it out. Dr. Nash himself says that he would fight it out on the line if it took all summer. So he himself says that even if it took all summer for him to finally find the real correct remedy, still he would not give up. He would keep fighting. The genius of the man, that is the genius of Dr. Nash, shows out in this strong determination to fight. The repeated failures served only as a fuel to him and showed out the real personality of the great doctor. So this is how Dr. N.M. Choudhuri very beautifully speaks about Dr. Nash, telling us about the importance of this determination, patience, perseverance, not giving up. Now he goes to the fifth characteristic, which is aggravation of all symptoms from sundown to sunrise. So basically from evening to morning. So whenever the sun goes down until the sun rises up. And in this respect, it is very similar to lutein. Then there is the last characteristic symptom of colchicum, which Dr. N.M. Choudhuri talks about, is sensation of icy coldness. Okay, sensation of icy coldness over the stomach. And this is especially found in Asiatic cholera. Okay, sensation of icy coldness over the stomach. So, right, until now we've discussed about all the characteristic symptoms, which were 6 in number. The first one was the extreme relaxation of the muscular system, so much so that the patient will fall in front of his chest or fall at the back. So his head might go anywhere because of the extreme exhaustion of the muscular system. The general aggravation we've seen from movement, from exposure to any damp, from exposure to any damp, from bathing, from living in damp weather, any change in weather. There's great, and all of these, all of these, whatever we said about, like there's general aggravation of movement, cold, damp, vagara, vagara, all of that can give him anything. It can lead to diarrhea, it can lead to rheumatism. So that is the importance of that symptom. And then there is third characteristic, in which we talked about the great susceptibility which this patient has to all the external impressions, such as light, noise, strong odor. And finally, the fourth one, which actually is very, very important, so important that it can, stand out prominently, and it can practically eclipse all other characteristic symptoms, right? Which means that if this symptom is present, you do not have to have any other characteristic symptom for you to prescribe colchicum. There is great nausea and faintness from the odor of cooked food, especially fish, eggs, fatty meat. Great nausea and faintness. All right. So then we came to the fifth characteristic, which was the aggravation of all symptoms from sundown to sunrise. And finally, the sixth one, which is icy coldness over the stomach, especially in Asiatic cholera. So these are the 6 characteristic symptoms of colchicum, which you have to remember.